The massive viewscreen dominated the wall of the Situation Room, casting an eerie blue glow over the faces of Earth's highest-ranking military and political leaders. Admiral Frank Caldwell stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his weathered face betraying no emotion as the alien message played for what felt like the 100th time. The translation software had worked perfectly, leaving no room for misinterpretation. The Galactic Council, a federation of over 300 advanced civilizations, had issued their final warning to humanity. Your species has developed quantum fold technology in violation of Council Directive 5591, said the tall crystalline being known as Archon Vexilon. Its voice was artificially modulated to sound pleasant to human ears, but the threat behind the words was unmistakable. This technology is restricted to Level 9 civilizations. Earth remains classified as Level 4. You have one standard galactic month to surrender all quantum fold research, dismantle existing prototypes, and submit to Council oversight. Failure to comply will result in immediate quarantine of your solar system and potential sterilization measures. Frank glanced at Dr. Olivia Wright, who stood beside him. As chief scientist of the Earth Defense Initiative, she had led the team that created the quantum fold drive. The breakthrough had been accidental, a side effect of experiments with dark energy containment. But that happy accident had propelled humanity centuries ahead in technological development. What other species had taken millennia to achieve? Humans had stumbled upon in less than a decade. "Turn it off," President Richard Dawson said quietly. The message froze on the image of Vexilon, its crystalline body refracting light in complex patterns. "Options, people. I need options." "We could comply," suggested Secretary of State Julia Forrest, though her tone made it clear she didn't believe in this approach. "Buy ourselves time to find a diplomatic solution." General Linda Martinez shook her head firmly. "The moment we surrender the quantum fold technology, we lose any leverage we might have. The Council has kept humanity contained in this solar system for a century. They've blocked our attempts to establish colonies beyond Mars. They've restricted our access to advanced medical technology. They're not interested in our advancement." "The General is right," Olivia said, stepping forward. She pushed a strand of dark hair from her face, her expression intense. "The quantum fold drive isn't just about faster-than-light travel. It fundamentally changes our understanding of space-time. The applications go far beyond transportation. Energy production, matter synthesis, even theoretical time manipulation. That's why they're afraid." "Afraid?" Senator Patricia Miller raised an eyebrow. "They have thousands of worlds, fleets that could turn Earth to ash. Why would they fear us?" "Because we're unpredictable," Frank answered. "I've studied Council records. In 3 million years of their history, they've never encountered a species that developed as rapidly as humans. We went from horse-drawn carriages to quantum physics in under 3 centuries. That terrifies them." Richard moved to the center of the room, commanding attention without raising his voice. "Fighting is suicide, surrendering is slavery. There has to be a third option." The room fell silent. Outside the reinforced windows of the Pentagon, Washington, D.C. continued its normal rhythm, citizens unaware of the existential threat hanging over them. Frank watched a commercial airliner cross the sky, carrying people who were worried about jobs and relationships, not interstellar politics. "There might be a way," Olivia said slowly. She activated her tablet and projected a holographic model above the conference table. "Project Lazarus." Several people in the room shifted uncomfortably. Project Lazarus was classified beyond top secret. A contingency plan developed after first contact with the Council revealed just how vulnerable Earth really was. Lazarus was designed as a last resort sanctuary, Frank explained for those who weren't familiar with the details. A hidden facility beneath the lunar surface, built to preserve human culture and knowledge in case of planetary disaster. "It's become much more than that," Olivia continued. "We've been using quantum fold principles to expand the facility exponentially. What was originally designed to house 10,000 people can now potentially support millions, and that's just the beginning." "You're suggesting we evacuate Earth?" Julia asked, incredulous. There are 8 billion people on this planet. Not an evacuation in the traditional sense, Olivia clarified. Something more distributed. Richard studied the hologram intently. Explain. The Council expects one of 2 responses, surrender or resistance. They've planned for both. What they haven't planned for is something completely outside their experience. Olivia expanded the holographic display to show multiple points of light scattered throughout a galactic map. We use the quantum fold technology not to build warships, but to create a network. Not to fight from a single position, but to exist in thousands of places simultaneously. A diaspora, Frank said, beginning to understand. Not concentrated in a single new colony where they could find us, but scattered like seeds. Exactly, Olivia nodded. Small groups, independently sustainable, linked by quantum fold communications. By the time the Council realizes what we've done, it will be too late to stop it. Patricia frowned. You're talking about abandoning Earth. No, Richard said firmly. We're talking about ensuring humanity's survival and freedom. Earth is our home, but we can't allow our entire species to be held hostage by the Council's restrictions. Linda studied the tactical implications. We'd need a distraction. Something to keep the Council focused on Earth while the diaspora happens. A diplomatic initiative, Julia suggested, her mind working quickly now. We could propose a compromise offer. To share limited aspects of the technology in exchange for full Council membership. It would be unprecedented, forcing them to debate the proposal. It buys us time, Frank agreed. But we'd need to move quickly and quietly. The Council has observation posts throughout our system. We've developed quantum stealth fields, Olivia explained. Small ships can move undetected. Not large colony. Vessels that would be impossible to hide, but smaller craft carrying the essentials. Genetic samples, cultural databases, scientific knowledge. And people, Richard added, volunteers. The best and brightest from every field. Not an escape of the elite, but a careful selection to ensure diversity of thought and skill. The room was silent again, but this time the silence felt different. It was the silence of people confronting an idea so audacious it might actually work. What about those who remain? Patricia asked the question they were all thinking. Earth continues as normal or appears to, Frank explained. We create a quantum mirage. From the outside, everything looks unchanged. Regular communications. Normal patterns of movement and energy usage. The Council thinks they're monitoring 8 billion humans going about their lives. Meanwhile, Olivia continued, we begin a phased, invisible exodus, not of bodies necessarily, but of minds. Of knowledge, of what makes us human. Richard looked around the room, meeting each person's eyes. I need your decision, not as officials, but as humans. Are we willing to transform our entire civilization to preserve our freedom? To become something new rather than submit to control? One by one, they nodded. Even Patricia, the most skeptical among them, could see the logic in the plan. Then we have work to do, Richard said. Admiral Caldwell, you'll coordinate with the military. Dr. Wright, accelerate Project Lazarus. Secretary Forrest, prepare. Our diplomatic response. Let's show the Council something they've never seen before, a species that refuses to be contained. As they dispersed to their tasks, Frank remained standing before the frozen image of Archon Vexilon. The alien had no idea that its ultimatum had just catalyzed humanity's greatest evolution. The Council expected compliance or futile resistance. Instead, they would get something entirely unexpected. Something chilling in its audacity. Humanity wasn't going to fight. It wasn't going to surrender. It was going to transcend. The journey to the lunar facility took less than an hour thanks to the new quantum-assisted shuttles, a small application of the technology that had so alarmed the Galactic Council. As the shuttle descended through a hidden entrance in the moons, far side, Chief Engineer Alan Garcia prepared for the delegation's arrival. He had been living at the Project Lazarus site for nearly 3 years, overseeing its dramatic expansion. What had begun as a simple bunker had evolved into something far more ambitious. Alan straightened his uniform and tried to calm his nerves. Today, he would show humanity's leaders exactly what their species was capable of when pushed to the edge. The shuttle docked with a soft hiss of equalizing pressure, and the delegation emerged one by one. President Richard Dawson led the group, followed by Admiral Frank Caldwell, Dr. Olivia Wright, General Linda Martinez, and a handful of other essential personnel. Alan noted their expressions of awe as they entered the reception area. The last time any of them had visited, Project Lazarus had been a series of small connected chambers. Now they stood in a vast underground atrium with a ceiling that stretched 50 meters above them, illuminated by artificial sunlight that mimicked Earth's natural spectrum. Living plants grew along carefully designed terraces, and water flowed in a circulating stream that wound through the space. It looked less like a military installation and more like the beginnings of a self-sustaining colony. Alan stepped forward with a respectful nod. "Welcome to Lazarus, Mr. President. We've made some changes since your last visit." Richard gazed upward at the enormous space. "I can see that, Alan. This is remarkable." Alan gestured toward a waiting transport platform. "This is just the entrance. Please follow me." The group boarded the platform, which began to glide silently along a track, taking them deeper into the lunar facility. As they moved, the true scale of Project Lazarus revealed itself. The main cavern opened up before them, a space so vast it seemed impossible that it existed within the moon. Construction drones moved efficiently through the air, assembling modular structures that looked like the beginnings of a city. Workers in environment suits operated larger machinery, carving new tunnels and chambers into the lunar rock. Some areas were already completed, with sealed habitation pods and agricultural sections visible through transparent barriers. "We've expanded the original designs by over 300%, Alan explained as the platform continued its journey. "The quantum fold technology doesn't just allow us to travel between stars. It lets us manipulate space-time in ways we're only beginning to understand." He pointed to a section where a strange shimmer distorted the view. "We can create pocket dimensions, spaces that are larger on the inside than they appear from outside. We've effectively multiplied our available area by a factor of 10. Frank leaned forward, military training making him focus on practical matters. "How many people can this support?" Alan's expression shifted slightly. "That's not really the right question, Admiral. Lazarus isn't just a shelter anymore." The platform slowed as they approached a massive hangar area. Inside, dozens of sleek vessels were under construction, none larger than a small yacht, but all incorporating the distinctive patterns of quantum fold technology. "These are seed ships," Alan continued, "each one capable of supporting up to 500 people in suspended animation, plus genetic samples, cultural databases, and fabrication equipment. They're designed to establish self-sustaining outposts." Olivia moved closer to examine one of the ships. "How many have you completed?" 87 are ready for immediate deployment, Alan replied. "We're finishing approximately one new ship every 3 days. All are equipped with quantum stealth technology that renders them effectively invisible to Council detection methods." Linda frowned, studying the ships with a tactical eye. "These aren't warships. They have minimal defensive capabilities." "That's intentional," Alan nodded. "We're not building an armada to fight the Council. We're building an Exodus fleet." Richard turned to face the engineer. "How far can they travel?" Alan's eyes lit up. "That's where the real breakthrough happened. Traditional Council FTL technology is limited to jumps of a few hundred light years. Our quantum fold drives have no such limitation. We've successfully tested jumps of up to 50,000 light years. Theoretically, we could reach other galaxies." A murmur ran through the group. The implications were staggering. Humanity wouldn't just be escaping the solar system. They could potentially spread throughout the entire Milky Way and beyond. "Show them the navigation system," Olivia suggested. She had been working closely with Alan's team, but even she seemed excited to see the delegates' reactions. Alan led them to a separate chamber where a massive holographic display dominated the center of the room. With a few gestures, he activated the system, and the Milky Way galaxy sprang to life around them, stars and nebulae rendered in beautiful detail. We've identified over 3,000 potential habitation sites, Alan explained as various points lit up throughout the galactic map. Some are Earth-like planets, but many are locations the Council would never consider rogue planets between star systems, stable points within nebulae, even artificial habitats we can construct in deep space. He manipulated the display, zooming in on several locations. We've selected sites based on resource availability, defensibility, and strategic value. Some are within existing Council territory, but in regions they rarely monitor. Others are in unexplored regions they've deemed too hazardous or unprofitable to colonize. Richard studied the map with intense focus. And these outposts would all be connected? Through quantum entanglement communications, Alan confirmed. Instantaneous, untraceable, and impossible to intercept. Each outpost would maintain contact with at least 3 others, creating a resilient network. If the Council discovers one location, the others remain secure. Frank walked through the holographic display, his expression thoughtful. The Council expects us to either surrender our technology or prepare for a conventional war. This is neither. Exactly, Alan nodded. We're not fighting on their terms. We're changing the game entirely. Linda crossed her arms, still skeptical. They outnumber us thousands to 1. They have fleets that could turn Earth to glass. How does scattering ourselves across the galaxy protect us from that? Because we won't be where they're looking, Olivia explained. While they're focusing their attention on Earth, we'll be establishing ourselves throughout the galaxy. By the time they realize what we've done, it will be too late. They can't quarantine an entire galaxy. Alan gestured to another section of the lunar facility, where rows of massive data storage units hummed quietly. We're not just preserving human lives, we're preserving human knowledge and culture. Every piece of art, literature, music, scientific discovery all copied and distributed across multiple outposts. Even if they destroy Earth, humanity will continue? Richard turned to face the group, his decision clearly made. How quickly can we begin the deployment? The first wave of ships can depart within 48 hours, Alan replied. We've already selected the initial colonist volunteers from various scientific and technical fields, plus genetic diversity specialists. He hesitated before adding, We need your authorization to begin the final preparations. Richard looked at each member of the delegation in turn. No words were needed. They all understood the enormity of what they were contemplating. Humanity would be transformed from a planetary species into something entirely new, a civilization without borders, distributed across the stars. Do it, Richard said simply. As they boarded the shuttle for the return journey to Earth, Frank moved to stand beside the president. The Council gave us 1 month to surrender, he noted. That's not much time for an operation of this scale. Richard gazed out the viewport at the lunar surface, his expression resolute. We'll need a distraction. Something to keep them looking at Earth while the exodus begins. Olivia joined them, her tablet displaying a draft of a diplomatic message. I think I have just the thing. Behind them, Project Lazarus continued its frantic pace of construction, building not just ships, but the future of humanity itself. Ambassador Michelle Carter felt very small as she approached the massive council chamber. The enormous doors towered 20 meters high, carved from some iridescent material that was neither stone nor metal but something alien and ancient, too. Council security drones floated silently on either side, their smooth surfaces betraying no weapons, though Michelle knew they could incinerate her in an instant if they perceived a threat. Michelle straightened her formal diplomatic uniform and checked the small translator device at her collar. It was the most advanced piece of technology humans had been permitted to bring into Council space before the quantum fold breakthrough. Now it seemed almost primitive compared to what humanity had achieved in secret. The massive doors parted silently, revealing the council chamber beyond. Michelle had seen images of this place during her briefings, but nothing had prepared her for the reality. The chamber was a perfect sphere, with representatives from over 300 spacefaring civilizations, arranged in tiered seating that followed the curve of the walls. The effect was deliberately intimidating, a single human standing at the center of an alien parliament that represented trillions of beings across thousands of worlds. Michelle took a deep breath and walked forward. She could feel hundreds of alien eyes tracking her movement. Some species had multiple eyes, others had sensory organs that weren't eyes at all but served the same purpose. The diversity was staggering. Crystalline beings that resembled walking geodes, floating gas sacs with tentacles trailing beneath them, insectoid creatures with compound eyes that reflected the chamber's light in rainbow patterns, and dozens of roughly humanoid species that nevertheless looked nothing like humans. At the highest point of the chamber sat the Archon of the Council, Vexilon. Its crystalline body refracted the light in complex patterns that Michelle knew were a form of secondary communication among its kind. Beside it sat representatives of the founding species of the Council, the oldest and most powerful civilizations in known space. They watched her approach with what she interpreted as a mixture of curiosity and disdain. "Ambassador Michelle Carter of Earth," announced a disembodied voice that seemed to come from the chamber itself. "You appear before the Council to deliver humanity's response to Directive 5591. Michelle reached the speaker's platform at the center of the chamber. A small holographic display indicated that her translator was functioning properly, converting her words into the standard Council language and simultaneously broadcasting in the native tongues of all present species. "Honorable Archon esteemed representatives of the Galactic Council," Michelle began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I bring greetings from Earth and our deepest appreciation for the opportunity to address this august body." The formal greeting was necessary protocol, though Michelle knew that behind the polite words, the Council was simply waiting to hear humanity's surrender. Instead, she was about to deliver something unprecedented. "Humanity acknowledges the Council's concerns regarding our development of quantum fold technology," she continued. "We understand that rapid technological advancement can be destabilizing to the galactic order that the Council has maintained for millions of years." She paused, noting how several representatives leaned forward slightly. They had expected immediate compliance or defiance, not this measured acknowledgement. "Therefore, we propose a compromise that we believe serves both the Council's interests and humanity's right to self-determination." A murmur spread through the chamber. In the 3 million years of Council history, no species had ever proposed an alternative to Council demands. The crystalline form of Vexilon shifted, light patterns cascading across its surface, and what Michelle's cultural briefing suggested was surprise. "We will share certain aspects of our quantum fold research with the Council scientific community," Michelle continued. "Additionally, we will accept limited oversight of our further development of this technology. In exchange, we request full membership in the Galactic Council, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails, and formal recognition of Earth's sovereign territories within our solar system." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of sounds as hundreds of representatives reacted simultaneously. Some were clicking mandibles or appendages, others emitting high-pitched whistles or rumbling bass notes that Michelle felt more than heard. Vexilon raised what approximated an arm, and silence fell immediately. "This proposal is irregular," the Archon said, its artificially modulated voice echoing through the chamber. "The Council does not negotiate its directives. Level 4 civilizations do not possess the development or maturity to handle quantum fold technology. This has been established doctrine for 2 million years." Michelle nodded respectfully. "We understand the Council's position, Archon. However, we believe our case is unique. Humanity developed quantum fold theory independently, through a natural progression of our understanding of physics. This suggests that perhaps the traditional metrics used to classify civilizations might not fully apply to human development." Another ripple of reaction moved through the chamber. Michelle knew she was challenging fundamental Council principles, but that was precisely the point. Every moment the Council spent debating was another moment for the Exodus ships to depart Earth undetected. Furthermore, she continued, we believe that shared knowledge benefits all. The particular approach humans have taken to quantum field manipulation differs from the Council standard. Our scientists have identified applications that we believe even Level 9 civilizations have not fully explored. This claim, which Olivia had assured her was absolutely true, caused even more commotion. Several representatives of the highest level civilizations conferred amongst themselves, their agitation visible even across species barriers. The representative of the Zorgan Empire, a vaguely reptilian being with iridescent scales, rose from its seat. The human speaks with remarkable audacity, it said, voice translated into a hissing whisper that nonetheless carried throughout the chamber. Their species has barely ventured beyond their own moon, yet they presume to teach us about quantum physics? Michelle kept her expression neutral. With respect, that is not what I suggested. We merely offer a different perspective. The Council values diversity of thought, does it not? That is the stated reason for maintaining the collective of species rather than allowing the most advanced to simply rule the others. This reference to the Council's own founding principles was calculated to create division. Based on the increased murmuring, it was working. A floating gas sack being drifted forward slightly. I am curious about the human approach. Perhaps we should at least examine their research before dismissing it entirely. Vexilon's crystalline body pulsed with patterns that Michelle couldn't interpret. This is not a scientific symposium, the Archon stated firmly. The directive was clear. The consequences for non-compliance are equally clear. Michelle spread her hands in a universal gesture of openness. We are not refusing compliance, Archon. We are proposing an alternative path that serves all parties. Surely that deserves consideration. More representatives began speaking simultaneously, some supporting examination of the human proposal, others demanding immediate enforcement of the directive. Michelle stood calmly in the center of the growing debate, exactly as planned. On her wrist, a small device that appeared decorative subtly vibrated against her skin. It was the signal from Earth. The first wave of Exodus ships had successfully departed the solar system, completely undetected by Council monitoring stations. Phase 1 was complete. Now for Phase 2. Archon, Michelle said, raising her voice slightly to be heard above the debate. If the Council requires time to consider our proposal, Earth is prepared to provide detailed documentation of our research. As a gesture of good faith, we ask only for a reasonable period of deliberation before any enforcement action is taken. Vexilon conferred briefly with the representatives of the founding species. After a moment, it turned its attention back to Michelle. This proposal is unprecedented, the Archon said slowly. The Council will require time to evaluate it properly. You will provide the promised documentation within 3 standard days. The Council will reconvene in 1 standard week to deliver its response. Until then, the enforcement deadline is suspended. Michelle bowed deeply, hiding her smile of triumph. Earth thanks the Council for its wisdom and consideration. We look forward to a productive dialogue. As she left the chamber, Michelle maintained her diplomatic composure, even as her mind raced with the implications of what had just happened. The Council, for the first time in its history, had delayed enforcement of a directive they had taken. The bait completely. Her communication device vibrated again as she boarded her shuttle. The message from Earth was simple: Phase 1 complete. Proceed to Phase 2. Michelle smiled as she settled into her seat for the journey back to the human embassy. The Council thought they were deliberating over a bold but ultimately conventional diplomatic proposal. They had no idea that the real plan was already in motion. By the time they realized what humanity was really doing, it would be far too late to stop it. In the shadow of Saturn's rings, hidden from both Earth and Council monitoring stations, Captain Ben Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance. The stealth carrier was one of the largest ships in the Exodus fleet, though still tiny compared to the massive Council vessels that occasionally patrolled the outer solar system. What the Defiance lacked in size, it made up for in technological sophistication. Its quantum fold drive was the most advanced yet created, and its stealth systems rendered it virtually invisible to all known detection methods. Then watched through the view screen as the last of the smaller ships docked with the carrier. Each contained precious cargo, not people, but the essence of humanity itself. "Final manifest update, Captain," said Commander Sophia Lee, his executive officer. She handed him a tablet displaying the inventory. "That's the last of the genetic repositories and historical databases, all secured and ready for transport." Ben scrolled through the list, impressed despite his familiarity with the plan. Seeds from every plant species on Earth, embryos from thousands of animal species, comprehensive medical databases, scientific research spanning every field, artistic masterpieces from throughout human history, literature in every language, music, films, cultural artifacts, the list went on and on. They weren't just evacuating people. They were preserving the entire human experience. "What about the personnel transfer?" he asked, handing the tablet back to Sophia. "All specialized crews have reported aboard their assigned vessels," she confirmed. "The last of the cultural preservation teams just arrived on Shuttle 7. We're at 98% of planned capacity," Ben nodded, satisfied. He moved to the command console and opened a secure channel to the other ships gathered in formation around the Defiance. There were 27 vessels in this particular group, each with its own destination programmed into its navigation system. Similar groups were gathered at other hidden locations throughout the solar system, in the asteroid belt, among Jupiter's moons, within Neptune's atmosphere, and a dozen other locations where Council sensors rarely penetrated. "All ships, this is Captain Rodriguez," he said, his voice calm despite the historical significance of the moment. "Final systems check complete. Prepare for coordinated fold on my mark." He paused, looking around at his bridge crew. These men and women had volunteered for a one-way journey into the unknown. None of them would ever see Earth again. Yet there was no fear in their eyes, only determination and perhaps a touch of excitement. "Engineering reports quantum fold?" "Drive at full capacity," reported Lieutenant Kyle Bennett from his station. "Coordinates locked for the Carina Nebula dark matter region." "All personnel secure for fold transition," added Sophia. Ben took a deep breath. "Activate quantum stealth fields." Around them, the stars seemed to blur slightly as the stealth field engaged, bending light and other forms of radiation around the small fleet. To any observer, human or alien, this section of space now appeared completely empty. The quantum stealth technology was perhaps humanity's greatest achievement, even more significant than the fold drive itself. While other species had developed cloaking technologies, none had achieved true quantum-level concealment. "Stealth field stable across all vessels," Kyle confirmed. Ben touched a small emblem on his uniform, the Earth flag, which now felt like a relic of a civilization about to transform itself. "All ships execute fold in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 mark." There was no dramatic flash of light, no violent acceleration. The quantum fold technology worked by temporarily shifting the ships into a different dimensional plane before returning them to normal space at their destination. From the perspective of those aboard, there was only a brief sensation of weightlessness. A momentary dimming of the lights, and then they were elsewhere. The view screen adjusted automatically, showing their new surroundings. Where Saturn's majestic rings had been visible moments before, now there was only the swirling gas and dust of the Carina Nebula, 50,000 light-years from Earth. "Fold complete," Kyle announced, checking his instruments. "All ships present." And accounted for position matches target coordinates exactly. Then allowed himself a small smile. "Begin deployment sequence. Let's build ourselves a new home." As the fleet dispersed to establish the outpost, Ben couldn't help but think of the hundreds of similar groups departing the solar system in waves, each carrying a fragment of humanity to a different corner of the galaxy. No centralized colony. That could be easily targeted, just thousands of small outposts, connected by untraceable quantum communications, slowly spreading human influence throughout the stars. Back on Earth, most of the population remained unaware of what was happening. Life continued normally, or so it appeared. In reality, the quantum resonance grid that Dr. Keith Morris had designed was already active, creating what amounted to a sophisticated mirage on a planetary scale. While the physical Earth remained unchanged, the quantum signature that Council sensors detected was increasingly an illusion, a carefully crafted simulation of normal human activity. In his laboratory beneath the Rocky Mountains, Keith made final adjustments to the planetary grid control systems. The facility was one of several backup locations, designed to maintain the illusion even if other control centers were discovered. "The mirage is stabilizing," he reported to the small team that would remain with him. "Council monitoring stations are receiving exactly what we want them to see." His assistant, Dr. Natalie Powell, studied the readouts with a critical eye. "How long can we maintain it?" "The system is designed to run for approximately 10 years without major maintenance," Keith explained. "By then, it won't matter anymore. The exodus will be complete, and humanity will be established throughout the galaxy." Natalie frowned slightly. "And if the Council attacks anyway?" "If they see through the deception," Keith's expression hardened, "then they'll learn they've been attacking a ghost for years." The quantum resonance grid doesn't just create an illusion, it can actively redirect energy weapons, scramble targeting systems, and confuse sensor readings. The more force they apply, the more the system will adapt to counter it. He gestured to a secure terminal that displayed the status of the Exodus fleets. "But that's a worst-case scenario." According to the latest reports, nearly 40% of the planned outposts are already established. "We only need to maintain the deception for another few months before we reach the critical threshold." "Which is?" 60%, Keith replied. "Once we have that many outposts operational, the network becomes self-sustaining. Even if they somehow destroyed Earth and every human in the solar system, humanity would continue to thrive elsewhere." His eyes took on a distant look. "We've been a planetary species for our entire existence. Now we're becoming something new, a distributed civilization spread across thousands of worlds, adapted to environments the Council never even considered habitable." In high orbit above Earth, Council monitoring stations continued their routine surveillance, their sophisticated sensors detecting nothing unusual. The quantum stealth technology that hid the Exodus ships also masked the subtle changes in Earth's energy patterns that might otherwise have revealed the truth. To the Council, humanity appeared to be going about its normal business, manufacturing, farming, traveling, communicating, all the expected activities of a Level 4 civilization. That was presumably preparing its response to the Council ultimatum. In reality, with each passing day, more of that activity became part of the quantum mirage, a sophisticated simulation designed to fool even the most advanced alien technology. From the Council's perspective, humanity was contained within a single solar system, its development carefully monitored, its potential threat easily managed. They had no way of knowing that the species they sought to control was already slipping between their fingers like sand, scattering itself among the stars. In a diaspora unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed, the Council's final threat had not been met with surrender or futile resistance. It had catalyzed humanity's greatest transformation from a vulnerable planetary species to a stellar civilization that could never be truly cornered or contained again, and by the time the Council realized what had happened, it would be far too late to do anything about it. 5 years had passed since the Council's ultimatum to Earth. In the Grand Council chamber, Archon Vexilon called for silence as the emergency session began. The massive screens surrounding the chamber displayed data that no one could explain, and the confusion was palpable among the hundreds of representatives gathered there. The crystalline form of Vexilon pulsed with patterns that indicated extreme agitation, visible even to species that couldn't fully interpret the subtle language of light and refraction. "The Science Minister will present the findings," Vexilon announced, its modulated voice echoing through the chamber. The Science Minister, a tall, spindly being with 6 limbs and skin that shifted colors with its emotions, stepped to the central platform. Currently, its skin displayed a mottled pattern of purple and gray that most Council species recognized as deep concern. "Honorable representatives," the minister began, "we have detected anomalous quantum signatures in 712 systems throughout the galaxy. After extensive analysis, we have confirmed that these signatures match the unique pattern of human quantum fold technology. The chamber erupted in sounds of disbelief and alarm. The science minister waited for the noise to subside before continuing. Many of these signatures appear in regions previously thought uninhabitable dark matter clusters, neutron star remnants, rogue planets in interstellar space, even the galactic core exclusion zone. The representative from the Zorgan Empire rose from its seat, scales flashing with anger. Impossible. We have had Earth under constant surveillance. Their fleet never left their system. Their technology is primitive. They barely have a presence on their own moon. And yet, the science minister replied calmly, the evidence is undeniable. Human activity is spreading faster than we can track. They have established outposts in regions where our sensors can barely function, using methods we do not fully understand. A display appeared, showing a map of the galaxy with hundreds of points of light indicating detected human activity. The pattern was not random. It formed a complex network, with clusters in regions of strategic importance and resource abundance. How could they have accomplished this? Demanded a representative of the Malorian collective, a hive mind species that prided itself on logical analysis. Earth showed no signs of mass evacuation. Our monitoring stations detected normal human activity patterns throughout the past 5 years. The science minister's skin shifted to a deep blue. We believe they have developed some form of quantum stealth technology far beyond what we thought possible for their development level. They have been hiding their activities from us, perhaps for years. Vexilon's crystalline body emitted patterns, so complex that even the most experienced translators struggled to interpret them. What of the diplomatic negotiations? The technological exchange they promised? There was never any intention to share their technology, the science minister replied. The diplomatic initiative was a distraction, buying them time while they implemented whatever plan they had already set in motion. At that moment, a junior analyst rushed into the chamber, ignoring all protocols in her urgency. She whispered something to the science minister, whose skin immediately paled to an almost translucent white, a sign of shock. Archon, the minister said, voice suddenly tight, we have detected a transmission being broadcast simultaneously from thousands of points throughout the galaxy. It's on all frequencies and all council languages. Vexilon gestured sharply, and the chamber screens changed to display the transmission. The face that appeared was that of President Richard Dawson, though he looked older than when the council had last seen him. His eyes, however, held the same determined intelligence that had characterized humanity from its first contact with the galactic community. Greetings, Council, Richard began. By now you've realized that humanity has neither surrendered nor fought your fleets. We chose a third option that your 3 million years of history never prepared you for. He paused, allowing his words to sink in. While you monitored empty ships and false communications, we relocated our civilization. Not to one place, but to thousands. Gasps echoed through the council chamber as the implications became clear. Humanity has seeded itself throughout the galaxy, Richard continued. In places your sensors cannot penetrate and your fleets cannot reach. We didn't build warships, we built gateways. We didn't mobilize armies, we scattered ourselves like stars. The map on the secondary screens updated in real time, showing even more points of human activity appearing throughout the galaxy as if in response to Richard's words. The pattern was now unmistakable. Humanity had created a vast interconnected network spanning the entire Milky Way. This was never about defiance, Richard said, his expression softening slightly. It was about survival, not just ours, but possibly yours as well. The chamber fell completely silent at this unexpected statement. Something is coming from beyond the galactic rim, Richard continued. We've detected it through our quantum fold network. Our scientists believe it will reach council space within 50 years. When it arrives, you'll need allies who think differently, who solve problems in ways you haven't imagined. The screens shifted to show sensor readings that even the council's most advanced Scientists had never seen before strange energy patterns at the very edge of the galaxy, moving slowly but inexorably inward. "We offer an alliance," Richard said, "not as a level 4 civilization begging for scraps of knowledge, but as equals. The threat we've detected will require all of us working together if the galaxy is to survive." Vexilon had stopped listening to the transmission. For the first time in its long existence, the Archon felt something akin to fear. The Council had threatened humanity, expecting either submission or a futile resistance, the only responses they had ever known from less advanced species. Instead, humanity had transformed itself from a planetary civilization into something the galaxy had never seen before, a species without borders, without a homeworld, distributed like a neural network throughout the stars themselves. "What are your orders, Archon?" the military commander asked, its tentacles twitching with anticipation. "Shall we begin quarantine procedures, locate and neutralize these human outposts?" Vexilon's crystalline form pulsed slowly as it considered the situation. "No," it finally said. "Quarantine is meaningless when the subject exists in 1,000 places simultaneously. And military action would be equally futile. We would be fighting shadows while the real humanity continued to spread." "Then what do we do?" demanded the Zorgan representative. "We cannot allow this precedent. Other species will follow their example. The entire council structure could collapse." "Perhaps," said a quiet voice from the lower tiers of the chamber, "we should listen to what they have to say about this threat." From beyond the rim, all eyes turned to the speaker, a representative of one of the younger council species, one that had itself only recently advanced to level 5 status. "They could have attacked us at any time in the past 5 years," the representative continued. "They have outposts within our most secure systems, technologies we don't fully understand. Yet they've taken no hostile action. Instead, they offer cooperation against a common threat." Vexilon was silent for a long moment. Then slowly, its crystalline form shifted into a pattern that most council species recognized as reluctant agreement. "Open a direct channel to this human leader," it ordered. "We will hear more about this threat they claim to have detected." As the communication technicians worked to establish the connection, Vexilon contemplated how completely humanity had outmaneuvered the Council. In just 5 years, they had gone from a quarantined species confined to a single solar system to a galactic presence that could never be truly contained or controlled again. It was an unprecedented transformation, one that would force the Council to reconsider its most fundamental assumptions about species development and governance. The Council's final threat hadn't been answered with weapons or surrender. It had been answered with evolution. Humanity had evolved beyond the Council's ability to constrain them, and that, more than any weapon or technology, was truly chilling. Because if humans could do this in just 5 years, what would they become in 100? 1,000? What other rules would they break? What other impossibilities would they make real? For the first time in 3 million years, the future of the galaxy was truly unpredictable. And as the face of President Richard Dawson appeared once more on the council screens, ready to begin the first true negotiation between equals, Vexilon understood that the age of council dominance was over. A new era had begun, one in which humanity would play a role that no one, not even humans themselves, could fully predict.